Sometimes the smallest voices carry the heaviest truths. The restaurant was drowning in quiet luxury, soft jazz, fine crystal glasses, the scent of overpriced steaks lingering in the air. At the center of it all, seated at the most exclusive table, was Nicholas Vaughn, a self-made millionaire, feared in boardrooms, respected in high society. He was used to people whispering his name, glancing at him in awe, hoping for a chance to impress him. But tonight, someone called his name, loudly. "You forgot about me." The entire restaurant fell silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Nicholas turned slowly, his brows furrowing. A little girl stood near the entrance, her tiny frame swallowed by a faded hoodie several sizes too big. Her hair was messy, her shoes scuffed beyond repair. She was out of place, wildly, painfully out of place. And yet she stood there, staring directly at him. His pulse quickened. Who was she? And why did her words hit him like a sledgehammer? The silence stretched. Eyes darted between Nicholas and the little girl, waiting for his reaction. A waiter stepped forward, ready to remove her, but Nicholas lifted a hand, stopping him. He stood, his chair scraping against the polished floor. "What did you say?" His voice was calm, but his heart was anything but. The girl swallowed hard, her small hands clenched into fists. "You forgot about me." Nicholas stared at her, searching his memory, but nothing came. He didn't know this child. Did he? "Who are you?" he asked, his voice quieter now. Her lip trembled, but she lifted her chin. "Emma," she said, voice cracking. "My name is Emma, and you were supposed to come back." A strange, sharp pain cut through him. Something deep, something he didn't understand yet. "Come back where?" Emma's eyes shimmered. The orphanage. Nicholas felt the ground shift beneath him. The restaurant, the murmuring guests, the clinking glasses. All of it faded. Because now, he did remember. The orphanage. The place he had grown up. The place he had promised years ago that he would return to once he made it in life. He had told himself he would help the children who were just like him, alone, abandoned, hoping for someone to save them. But he had gotten busy. He had built an empire. He had forgotten. And now, standing before him, was proof of the promise he had broken. Emma wiped her nose with her sleeve. "Miss Clare, she was the one who took care of all of us. She said you were coming back. She said you didn't forget. But she got sick and she—" Emma's voice wavered. "She's gone now." Nicholas's stomach twisted. Miss Clare, the woman who had been the closest thing to a mother he ever had. The only one who believed in him when no one else did. He felt something crack inside him. Emma sniffled. "She always told us to wait for you. She said you'd come." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "But you never did." Nicholas stood frozen, guilt crashing over him like a tidal wave. He had spent years proving to the world that he was someone, that he had made it. But in doing so, he had abandoned the very people who once saved him. His throat tightened. He looked down at Emma, small, shivering, but still standing tall. And he knew, in that moment, that this was his second chance, a chance to fix what he had broken. Nicholas swallowed the lump in his throat, forcing himself to speak. "Emma, He stopped, because what could he even say? "I'm sorry," felt too small. "I didn't mean to forget," felt like a lie. Emma stared at him, waiting, hoping, and suddenly he saw himself in her, a younger version of himself, standing in that same orphanage, waiting for someone, anyone, to come back for him. But no one ever had, until Miss Clare, and now she was gone. Nicholas exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "How long have you been waiting?" His voice was rough, not from anger, but from something deeper. Emma kicked at the floor. A long time. Her voice was small again. Miss Claire got sick last year. She said you'd come help. But when she... Emma's lips quivered. When she died, nobody came. And then, they said the orphanage was closing. Nicholas felt like he'd been punched in the chest. Closing. He had promised himself, promised that he would take care of that place one day, that no kid would ever feel as abandoned as he had. But he had gotten caught up in the money, the power, the never-ending chase of proving himself, and in doing so, he had left them behind. Emma sniffled. Some of the kids got taken to other homes, some didn't. Her fingers twisted into her hoodie. I ran away before they could send me somewhere else. Nicholas's jaw clenched. You've been on the streets? She nodded. A fresh wave of guilt crashed over him. She had come looking for him, had believed in him when no one else did, just like Miss Claire once had, and he had let her down. Nicholas turned, pulling out his wallet, but Emma took a step back, her eyes narrowing. I don't want your money. He froze. Emma sniffled again, wiping her nose with her sleeve. I don't care if you're rich. I just wanted to know why you never came back. The words hit harder than any business loss ever had. Nicholas exhaled, kneeling so he was at eye level with her. He wasn't going to lie. He wasn't going to make excuses. You're right, he said, his voice steady. I did forget, and I can't change that. He glanced around the restaurant at the people still watching, still whispering. None of them mattered. All that mattered was this girl, this moment. But I can fix it, he said. Emma blinked up at him. How? Nicholas stood, pulling out his phone. By making sure you never have to wait for me again. And then, right there in the middle of the restaurant, in front of everyone, he made a call that would change everything. The orphanage. Find out who owns it now, he told his assistant. I don't care how much it costs. I'm buying it back. Emma's mouth fell open. Nicholas wasn't done. And send a legal team to my location. There's a little girl here who isn't going back to the streets. Emma's eyes widened. What do you mean? Nicholas looked down at her, his expression softer now. I mean, if you'll let me, I'm taking you home. Emma's lip trembled. For a moment, she looked like she didn't believe him. But then, slowly, hesitantly, she nodded. Nicholas felt something shift inside him. For years, he had built his life around success, thinking it would fill the emptiness inside him. But in the end, all it took was 4 words from a little girl to remind him what truly mattered. Sometimes the promises we forget are the ones that matter most. The real question is, do we fix them before it's too late? Nicholas hung up the phone, his decision final. The whispers in the restaurant had turned into hushed murmurs, waiters exchanging glances, guests pretending not to stare. But he didn't care. Emma stood there, clutching her oversized hoodie, her eyes darting between him and the phone in his hand. You really mean it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. You're not just saying that? Nicholas knelt again, meeting her at eye level. I don't say things I don't mean. His voice was steady, firm. You're coming with me. No more streets, no more waiting. Emma's lips pressed together, as if she wanted to believe him but couldn't quite let herself. Then, after a long pause, she nodded. Nicholas straightened, turning toward the exit. Come on, let's get out of here. Emma hesitated before taking a small step forward. The restaurant manager, who had been standing awkwardly nearby, finally found his voice. Mr. Vaughn, should I have your car brought around? Nicholas didn't even glance at him. Yes, and tell the staff to wrap up a meal for Emma. She's coming with me. The man blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Oh, of course, sir." As they walked toward the door, Emma tugged at Nicholas's sleeve. "Where are we going?" Nicholas glanced down at her. "Home." Emma frowned. "Your home?" He gave her a small smile. "For now, until we figure out something more permanent." Her footsteps slowed. "And the orphanage?" Nicholas's jaw tightened. "By this time tomorrow, it'll be yours again." Emma stopped completely, her hands clenched at her sides. "But why?" Nicholas turned to face her. "Because I broke my promise once." His expression softened. "And I'm never doing it again." Tears welled in Emma's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away, trying to act tough. Nicholas saw right through it. He knew that feeling well, wanting to be strong, to not show weakness, because life had never given you the chance to be vulnerable. She didn't need to say thank you. He didn't need to hear it. Because for the first time in years, Nicholas wasn't just a millionaire. He was finally the person he had promised to be. As they stepped outside into the night, the weight in his chest lifted. Some things couldn't be fixed with money, but some things could be made right, with the choice to finally do the right thing. Sometimes it takes the smallest voice to remind us of the promises we forgot. The real question is, do we have the courage to keep them?